in the southwest, just slowly spreading northwards. At the same time, this line of rain clears from the central belt of Scotland, spreads into southern Scotland and eventually into parts of northern England, followed by lots of showers across Scotland and Northern Ireland. But in between, some parts of northern England, North Wales, having another dry and a bright day. Quite mild in the south, 17, 18, but not feeling all that mild with the cloud and the outbreaks of rain. It'll still be around on Friday evening across the southeast before that scoots away. This line of rain kind of fizzles out as it sinks its way southwards. So again, clear spells, some mist and fog patches forming as we head into Saturday. But then another line of rain comes zipping in. That'll make for a fairly soggy start through parts of Wales, northern England and Scotland on Saturday. But again, it scoots away to the north and to the east, and it'll be followed behind by a whole host of showers. So blustery with sunshine and showers on Saturday afternoon, with temperatures again in the south, the mid to high teens, lower further north, only 10 to 12. So feeling pretty fresh here with that brisk wind. The weather charts remain messy through the weekend. Low pressure systems bringing the bands of showers. And then this one could bring some more persistent rain into the west on Sunday.
Weekday afternoons on GB News, we've got the whole of the UK covered. From 12 to 3, it's GB News Day with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Gloria Di Piero. You'll get the very latest on everything that's been going on across our great nation.
And from 3 till 6, watch out for GB News Live with me, Patrick Christys. I'm not here to mess around. With all the biggest topics and guests, you will always be up to date. GB News Day and GB News Live from 12 p.m.
Only on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Hey, welcome along. It's the Mark Steyn Show, now under double investigation by Ofcom. I was just checking whether we'd had a new one for today. If we do get a third, will they retire the trophy? I'd love to take it home with me. We're going to do our best to win another Ofcom complaint in the hour ahead. On this show, we talk about the stuff that matters, like Just Stop Oil, currently bringing the capital city to a standstill because despite the mysterious bombings of the Nord Stream pipelines and OPEC's decision to cut oil production, energy prices aren't quite stratospheric enough for some tastes. We're going to talk about that with Alex de Koenig from Just Stop Oil. Do you like child gang rape? If you live in almost any reasonably sized English town, a remarkable number of your neighbours do like child gang rape. Just a week ago, the new Home Secretary called it a stain on our country, but the stain spreads and everyone looks the other way. Harriet Sargent doesn't, and she's going to join us. What's a good sign that you're living in a totalitarian society? When they fact-check your jokes. In Zimbabwe, 20 years ago, you could be arrested for making jokes about Robert Mugabe's Chinese-made rubber penis. I'm sorry if Ofcom are watching. Robert Mugabe's alleged Chinese-made rubber penis. It might have been made in Tajikistan, for all I know. In the increasingly humorless United Kingdom, they're casting their net rather more widely. Leilani Dowding has been on the receiving end of the joke checkers this week, and we're going to hear from her about that. Did you bang your pots and pans for the NHS every week? That may be an agreeable fetish for those who don't have regular tastes, like hanging upside down in a bondage dungeon. But it actually doesn't do anything to improve wait times for a broken leg or a ruptured appendix. In England, some 13% of the population are now on the NHS waiting list. So that means when you call up to make an appointment, you get a recorded message saying there are over 7 million people ahead of you in the queue. So we hope you enjoy the light orchestral renditions of Wind Beneath My Wings and the theme from Titanic, because you're going to be listening to them for the next 3 years. That's particularly cruel if you're spending more time in the medical system than you ever intended, because you were misled by the medical establishment and all the other organs of the British state. Our friend, the BBC presenter Jules Sirkin, is back with us on that. And of course, the most important part of the show, that is you. Email me, ask me anything you'd like. You can Twitter me to gbviews@gbnews.uk. That's the email. The tweet is @gbnews. A full hour of news and analysis coming your way after Polly Middlehurst with the latest headlines. All yours, Polly.
Mark, thank you. Good evening to you. The Chancellor is insisting the government's position on the economy has not changed. That's ahead of the Bank of England's support measures coming to an end tomorrow. Kwasi Kwarteng says his focus is on delivering the mini-budget amid reports of a government U-turn on the plan. The Prime Minister's been urged to reconsider the measures by some Tory members of the 1922 committee, leading to speculation Liz Truss's own position could be in jeopardy. Well, the International Trade Secretary, Kemi Badenoch, says it's important her party works together.
Even talking about changing leaders at this time would be disastrous. We should not be talking about that at all. We should be focusing on what is important for people's lives, for their jobs and for their prosperity. It's time to unite and get behind the Prime Minister and focus on her growth agenda.
In other news today, a court has heard a nurse accused of murdering several babies wrote, "I am evil and I killed them on purpose," on notes found during a search of her home. Lucy Letby is charged with the murder of 7 babies and the attempted murder of 10 others at the Countess of Chester Hospital across 2015 and 2016. Her defence counsel told Manchester Crown Court today she cared deeply about the babies and loved her job. 32-year-old Letby denies all allegations. In the United States, a jury is recommending a life sentence for a gunman who killed 17 people at a school in Florida 4 years ago. Nicholas Cruz, who was 19 at the time, used a semi-automatic weapon at Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland. He pleaded guilty to the murder of 14 of his fellow students and 3 members of staff. The head of NATO says the circumstances for his organisation to use nuclear weapons was extremely remote, but that there would be severe consequences for Russia if they were to use them. Jens Stoltenberg refused to be drawn on the details of how the alliance could respond, but said that using them against Ukraine would be crossing a red line. He said NATO would remain vigilant in the coming weeks as Russia holds its own nuclear drills.
We have increased our vigilance in the Baltic and North Seas and doubled our naval presence there. Allies are increasing security around key installations. And we are stepping up our intelligence sharing and surveillance across all domains, from space to undersea capabilities.
Stoltenberg. Now, the Queen Consort has carried out her first solo engagement in her new royal title. Camilla met with victims of at-home violence and workers at Chelsea and Westminster Hospital in London. She spoke with professionals in the field of domestic abuse and other staff there too. A worker for the charity Safe Lives said Camilla was doing a wonderful job. That's it. You're up to date on TV, online and on DAB+ radio. You're with GB News, the People's Channel, where now it's time for Mark Steyn.
Thank you, Polly. Gotta love that nuclear chit-chat with Jens Stoltenberg. It's all getting weirdly normalized until eventually one day there's the big mushroom cloud on your TV set. Just ahead of that, nothing works anymore. The health service is a grim metaphor. Nearly 3 years ago, Boris Johnson announced that one of the goals of his COVID policy was to, quote, protect the NHS. Instead, the NHS has died. Over 7 million people are now on the waiting list. That's a record, but don't worry, a new record will be coming along in just a few weeks. 8 million, 9 million. This is in England alone, by the way, so we're not including Scotland, Northern Ireland, Wales. We have an increase in deaths at home. Deaths at home because you can't get into hospital even to die. Our stats man, Jamie Jenkins, thinks the excess deaths running at 1,000 a week or so all spring and summer is due to people not being able to go see a doctor and get diagnosed because you can't be treated for what you've got until you know what you've got. But just because nothing works doesn't mean it can't be made worse. So you call 999 for an ambulance and then lie on the ground in agony for 15 hours, like this poor man did, 87 years old, waiting 15 hours on the ground in the rain for an ambulance. And then eventually they show up and they drive you to hospital, where your ambulance sits idling in the car park for another 15 hours or so. So far, so typical. And there you go. That guy's, he just had a heart attack waiting to get, he was already in the ambulance before he had the heart attack, and then he went into cardiac arrest while he's in the car park of the hospital. So far, so typical, and we'll talk about that with Leilani Dowding a little later. But now there's a new wrinkle. The street is blocked by so-called, the street your ambulance is driving down. Here's one. That ambulance is trying to get through to a hospital, but the street is being blocked by so-called activists from the group Just Stop Oil. They're not terribly active as activists go. They're just lying down in the road. But because they're even more inactive, useless, well, there they are lying down in the road, in the Mall, in front of the Queen Victoria Memorial. She has just been sitting there for 120 years. She's got a good excuse because she's dead. They're sitting there for an entirely different reason. And the Metropolitan Police do not do a thing to remove them. So they prevent ambulances and fire engines from getting through. So I don't know whether they've actually succeeded in just stopping oil, but Just Stop Oil have just stopped the emergency services. So next time there's a Grenfell Tower-type fire and you're stuck in the thing, you better hope Just Stop Oil are taking a day off. The Metropolitan Police constables are very indulgent of these fellows, whether John Constable, no relation, the great English landscape painter would feel the same way about Just Stop Oil is another matter. At the National Gallery, Just Stop Oil members glued themselves to his masterpiece, the Haywain. This is the Haywain. That's them. That's the Haywain without Just Stop Oil guys glued to it. I prefer it the old way. I don't think it's a fabulous painting. I don't really think it needed environmental activists stuck to it. They managed to do some surface damage there to one of the great glories of English art. Alex de Koning is a spokesman for Just Stop Oil, and we're very pleased he's able to join us. Alex, what has Constable got to do with stopping oil?
Hi, thanks for having me on the show, Mark. Well, what do you think is more important, life or art? Because that's the sort of questions we're facing right now. There are millions of people being affected by the climate crisis. 33 million people in Pakistan were displaced from floods. Communities, lives, homes destroyed. That's 6 times the population of Scotland, my country.
Wait, just explain what is the... floods is a meteorological event. It's what we used to call weather. Why are you saying the Pakistan floods are climate change related?
Are you a climate denier, my friend?
I've got no view on it. We're talking about
you have no view on the fact that it was 40 degrees Celsius in London just a few months ago. So hot that ambulance... So hot that train tracks spontaneously combusted. Busiest day for firefighters since World War II. Because 60 homes were going on wildfires in the UK. NHS was put on black alert.
No, don't. We're talking about what you guys are doing to it. People don't mind 40 degrees Celsius. Everybody
I think the farmers mind.
on these
Half of all potato crops are expected to die from this year, and a third of wheat crops have died.
Wait a minute. Everybody in these rain-sodden islands wants to go somewhere where it's 40 degrees Celsius for their summer holidays.
If you can't
so the
grow
idea
food,
that 40 degrees Celsius means the planet's going to... No.
Would you rather have a holiday or a potato crop?
No, we're talking about you guys getting what you want by gluing yourself to the street.
We're talking about global starvation within a decade.
No. We're talking about you guys damaging a great work of art. How does that help you save the planet?
How is the frame of that painting more important?
Well, that painting is one of the great achievements of our civilization.
We glued to the frame of that painting.
Are you opposed to human civilization?
No, I'm not. I'm actually trying to help defend it by making sure that we don't have any more fossil fuel licenses in the UK. That's what we're demanding. Because as soon as we have more oil in the UK, we're going to face societal collapse. As I say, we're already facing food shortages, and it's 2022. How bad do you think things are going to get in 10 years' time? I'm only 24. Every single year for the rest of my life is going to get worse.
We're talking about your plan to change the world by gluing yourself to the street. By the way, are you aware that petroleum is used not just to fill your car up and drive around, but it's used in a zillion other products? When you guys glue yourself to the street, are you aware that fossil fuel products are used in almost every superglue? Are you using fossil fuels to glue yourself to the road?
You're always going for the hypocritical argument because you know you have no other argument to fall back on. Look, you could have said all of this decades ago. I don't understand the point. But at this point, we've had 40 degrees temperatures in the UK, and we're facing a cost of living crisis and still subsidising the fossil fuel industry with £236 million every single week. There's nothing you can push back on with me.
Yeah, we can. We've got 40 degrees temperatures for 48 hours. More people are dying. We've got more excess deaths.
People died in those 48 hours.
Yeah, well, we've got 1,000 extra deaths a week, and nobody gives a crap about them, including you. Let me ask you something. You're doing a PhD.
Yes.
You're doing a PhD, is that correct?
Yeah, in green hydrogen production. But I've taken 7 months out of that very relevant PhD to do this full time, because what we do as scientists means nothing if the government's not willing to implement it. While we're still subsidising the fossil fuel industry, everything else we do, all the scientific research, that's just mopping up with the tap open.
No, but hold on here. Most people in the UK cannot afford to take 7 months off from their PhD.
I know, I'm very lucky to be able to do so.
You're not blocking big oil billionaires. You're blocking the working classes of the United Kingdom from getting to their jobs or even from getting to their hospitals.
Mark,
what's that got to do with saving the planet? This is a class thing. It's a pampered, privileged guy taking a 7-month break.
You're a multi-millionaire and I'm a student.
Wait a minute. How do you know I'm a multi-millionaire?
Your net worth is on Google, mate.
Oh, really? That's fantastic. I'm glad to hear that. Certainly my lawyers will be pleased to hear that because they're worried I can't pay my legal bills. But listen...
I'm worried I can't pay my energy bills. That's why I want all the homes in the UK to be insulated.
No.
That's why I want public transport subsidised. These are our demands, and they're very reasonable demands. Why are we taxing the big oil companies and using that to do renewable energy? Renewable energy is currently 9 times cheaper than gas. Why are we not switching to that? Why do I feel like I'm losing my mind
There's not enough of it. It's not the per unit cost.
I'm doing the PhD.
This is where you're all wrong.
I'm the climate scientist here. Trust me, there is enough. I don't think wind is running out anytime soon. Is solar running out anytime soon?
Do you agree with Greta? What about Greta Thunberg, then, who has called for Germany to keep the nuclear plants going because Germany can't keep the lights on and can't keep the heat on? It's done all the things you wanted and it can't produce enough energy. The unit cost is irrelevant. You've got to be able to provide enough of it to all citizens of the country.
If your energy bills were £3,500
No.
or £400, what would you rather?
You can't make enough of it. You could stick a windmill on your head and the head of everybody's...
We could be using tidal energy. Tidal energy. We live on an island. Why aren't we doing that? We can get over 10% of our entire energy from tidal power alone. Currently, only 9.8% of our energy is from renewable sources. Only 9.8.
Yeah, and you can't, and you have no way of replacing oil powers modern lives. Everything. It's in everything from the clothes, including a lot of the clothes you wear, including the clothes you wear, including toilet seats, including aspirin. All these things contain
fossil fuel. So we should just give up. The climate crisis doesn't exist because there's a bit of oil and some toilet paper. Is that what you're telling me?
Well, wait a minute. What is the manifestation of the crisis?
What do you mean?
Do you think the hurricane in Florida is a manifest?
Say again?
Do you think OK, well, let me ask you something, going back to that Constable painting. You guys replaced the Constable painting with a painting of the way that scene would look now, with a big truck coming past the middle of the scene and a plane flying overhead.
Mm-hmm.
Are you in favour of immigration?
Why are we talking about immigration?
Well, because you're talking about carbon foot. Yeah, no, we're talking about the climate crisis and carbon footprints. And a guy in Somalia has a carbon footprint. I think it's a 1/70th of a carbon footprint in the United Kingdom.
Yeah, exactly.
So
that's why we need
every
to cut our
night we see all these
emissions,
people moving from Somalia to the United Kingdom and acquiring a UK-sized carbon footprint. Where do you stand on immigration?
What has this got to do? We need to be cutting our own emissions. We need to be subsidising public transport,
because that's
insulating our homes. There's no reason for us not to be insulating our homes.
No, that's
it cuts
what's
our energy bills.
If you're going to glue yourself to great English landscapes, what screwed the English countryside is massively increasing the population of an overcrowded island.
That's got nothing to do with it.
So I'm interested to know if you're so concerned about the loss.
From Scotland, we have tons of highlands.
But nobody's going there. They're going to... You're the ones who damaged the Constable. So if you want Constable's England back, where do you stand on mass immigration? Where do you stand on mass immigration?
I have no problem with immigration. Are you being racist right now?
Oh, well, there you go then. There you go then. So everyone will be leading a UK-sized consumer lifestyle with a UK-sized carbon footprint.
We need to cut our own emissions.
Let me ask you this.
We need to not... We're not worried about immigration.
This is class warfare.
It's not class warfare.
This is pampered... It's pampered PhDs at war with the work. Who are you stopping in the streets? Do you think you're stopping any oil billionaires? You're stopping people trying to get to work, trying to get to hospital. You're stopping fire engines.
No. Look, that ambulance...
You said something very interesting.
What did I say?
Yeah.
Going to answer that question?
No, you said something very... No, you can answer the question.
OK. We did not block an ambulance. It was delayed for 3 minutes. We have a blue lights policy. We let all emergency vehicles through. The siren wasn't on, so we didn't realise it in time. And then 2 Just Stop Oil people guided it through the roadblock, myself included. If you watch the video for longer than the 20 seconds that you showed, you will see that happen. The ambulance gets through. It takes 3 minutes. However, when there was the heat wave in the UK, where it was 40 degrees, ambulances were put on black alert, as I said earlier. There was so much disruption caused from that, and 1,775 people died. Why are we not talking about that instead?
Well,
you were even talking about at the beginning of your show that 15 hours ambulances would have to wait in car parks, and that there was so many tailbacks. We're talking about 3 minutes of disruption.
No, yeah, the NHS is kaput. It's broken. But what are you said on television a couple of days ago...
One of the reasons why the NHS is kaput, as you put it, is because there are people dying from the cold during the winter. Thousands upon thousands of people. One of my friends is a paramedic. He's in Just Stop Oil.
Yeah.
And he told me that the amount of times he has to go out to a home and he finds somebody just sitting dead and cold with a mouldy fridge just in their armchair because they died from fuel poverty. They couldn't choose between heating and eating. So they just died. Yeah. That happens every single year, thousands of times. If we insulated homes, if we switched to renewable energy, which was 9 times cheaper...
It's happened in this century because of the war waged on traditional energy sources by stupid governments that have shut down coal mining, stopped fracking, find nuclear distasteful... No, you're living in the dark ages. It's nice,
trying to do a
unless it's
progressive future.
outside
What are you
your
talking
front
about? You're
door.
just clinging on to the
It's
old
nice
fossil
to have
fuel
a big winter. Your wind turbines can't do it. Your wind turbines
Trust me, I
can't
know. They
produce
can.
enough energy.
They really can.
No,
Yes,
they
they can.
can't. Look at Germany.
They can, though.
Do you disagree with the sainted Greta Thunberg? Who's now come out all for keeping the nuclear plants open? You don't disagree with Saint Greta, do you?
Look, for Germany, it takes time to make renewable energy sources, but we have 8 years of oil in reserve, and it takes 6 weeks to build the UK's largest solar panel farm. Whereas for oil, it would take, on average, 25, 28 years to get new oil from a fossil fuel license. We don't have 25, 28 years to wait. I mean, look outside. It's the hottest October in ever. It was 40 degrees in the UK. We are struggling with our food crops. We don't have that long to wait.
It was 40 degrees for 48 hours, and then it went back to being, whatever it is, 12 degrees and cloudy. We follow the weather every day. And that 40 degree thing was the only interesting bit of British weather until the hurricane
we have
in
the worst
Seven
drought
Oaks,
in 500
30
years.
since the hurricane.
Worst
so
drought in 500
that doesn't
years.
mean anything. And
Tell that
incidentally,
to
when we
half of our
have these
potato crops that have been destroyed.
Yeah, no. We're getting out of the farming business. Bill Gates says we got to eat insects, so we won't need potatoes, we won't need dairy, we won't need beef.
Maybe the reason we'll have to eat
you guys
insects
have got to be
is
clear
because
on
we
your
can no
image.
longer
You want
farm
us to
because
be
we're having droughts.
No, it's something to do with having droughts. We can no longer have farm because the bovine flatulence is destroying the planet. Thank you very much, Alex. We appreciate hearing your view. As I said,
I do hope, and I hope all your
you're
viewers
not
can come
gluing
join us
yourself to the
11 a.m. 10
highway.
Downing Street every single day.
Yeah, well, don't glue yourself outside Downing Street with glue containing fossil fuels and petroleum. It is extremely hypocritical. Yeah, well, try and find some organic super glue that hasn't got the petroleum in it. This isn't the suffragettes. This isn't We Shall Overcome in the 1960s. This is a march of the woke privileged against the working classes of the UK. You can have the last word, Alex.
Woke privilege? I mean, come on, are you serious? Look, we need no new oil.
No,
everybody knows it. Everybody knows it.
No.
There's no future with fossil fuels. We're in a climate crisis. If you are worried about the cost of living crisis, if you're worried about the climate crisis and you want to see how they're interconnected, come to a Just Stop Oil talk, find out some more information.
No, the cost of living is the cost of indulging you guys with this
it's the cost of greed.
Nonsense for
it's
the
cost
last
of
20
fossil fuel companies
years.
making £7 billion in pure profit every 3 months.
It's the cost of oil has been for a century what has powered the most prosperous civilization in history. And as I said, it's in everything aside from the tank of your car. And there's nothing that can replace that. Thank you, Alex. Appreciate hearing your view. Up next, we're going to hear your take. GBViews at gbnews.uk. Plus, Leilani Dowding gets rebuked by the full fact checkers. No jokes about NHS waiting lists. And no jokes about hordes of migrants. Not for you, young lady. That's very naughty. And the joke checkers are very upset with you. Don't go anywhere. We're coming right back.
Weekday afternoons on GB News, we've got the whole of the UK covered. From 12 to 3, it's GB News Day with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Gloria Di Piero. You'll get the very latest on everything that's been going on across our great nation.
And from 3 till 6, watch out for GB News Live with me, Patrick Christys. I'm not here to mess around with all the biggest topics and guests. You will always be up to date. GB News Day and GB News Live from 12 p.m.
Only on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and tune-in apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Faro.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
GB News is the People's Channel, so let us channel what the people are saying. John says, these lunatics need to be sectioned. That isn't going to work. There's a 2-year waiting list to get into the NHS asylum, so that is probably not going to do it. Pete says, just stop oil. The interesting thing is that people on the street are getting sick of this, and they are taking, and the coppers are useless. The coppers are just rubbish in the metropolis, particularly, so people are just taking it into their own hands. Titch quack, and it shouldn't be necessary to do that, but in the void of British policing, you can't expect people just to put up with guys using fossil fuel super glue to glue themselves to the highway. Titch Quackers says maybe they'll let through electric ambulances. Look, actually, this is a preview of the world that's coming, because there's no point in having ambulances unless there's a hospital to take you to. The 3 minutes that he said they held up the ambulance for, that can actually be critical. That is the difference between getting to hospital with chest pains and getting to hospital after you've had a fatal heart attack in the ambulance. So those 3 minutes can be crucial. But the point here is that if you're just getting to the hospital to wait in the car park, there's no point having an ambulance service anyway. Grooming gangs. Hideous, evasive euphemism designed by our craven officials and our worthless media to obscure the truth about what's going on, which is industrial-scale child gang rape. And it's also designed to obscure the truth about who the perpetrators are. Rotherham, Rochdale, Telford, Oxford. We've talked about them all. All the stories are different, and yet they're all, in a certain sense, exactly the same. As we discussed last week with a survivor of these predators, our friend Samantha Smith, the basic arithmetic does not add up. Every town is shocked to discover over 1,000 girls have been raped, often for years on end. And if you're lucky, maybe a couple of dozen of them go to jail for a few years, which suggests, as Samantha says, that 90% of the pedo rapists in Telford and Rotherham and everywhere else are getting away with it. We now have an absolutely horrifying case study from Bradford. One 13-year-old girl raped by 23 different men. 23 men. Oh, no, sorry, my mistake. Just a couple of days ago, a 24th man was added, charged with raping this poor 13-year-old girl. Can you guess his name, boys and girls? Jeremy? Clive? Peregrine? No, it was, stand well back, this will stun you, Omar. If I want to read about English grooming gang cases, I generally turn to the Indian media, which is rather more straightforward and less dishonest than the UK press. So, headline from Op India here. Omar, Khalid, Jamil and 21 others charged for raping a minor girl for 4 years. Omar, Khalid, Jamil plus Kaza, Syed, Abbas, Musadak, Amjad, another Syed, Hanan, Burhan, Abdul, Asif, Shazad, Ibrahim, Ashfaq, Aftab, Yusuf, Anwar, Shahinul, Mohammed and Muhammad. Now, I want to be fair here. Among these 24, there was also a Brian, very English, well, used to be, and Pasquale, that's Italian. But otherwise, 22 out of 24, that's 92% are Muslim names. Celebrate lack of diversity. That little girl is a triple victim of the pedo gang rapists, of a complicit officialdom and of an indifferent public. Harriet Sargent has a very insightful piece on this in The Spectator. Harriet, we've known about this for a decade now, and we're still hearing all the same stupid, worthless, evasive euphemisms about quote-unquote Asian men. As you pointed out, that is awfully unfair to blameless Bhutanese yak herds and other ethnic groups in the... yeah. I mean, Asia contains 2/3 of the entire planet's population. So saying Asian men is pretty much advertising that you're too scared to actually identify who's doing this.
I lost the sound there, sorry. I lost the question.
Well, I was just saying that Asian men make up 2/3 of all the men on the planet. So when you say Asian men, it's basically a way of saying the media and everybody else saying we are basically too scared even to cover this story honestly.
Yeah, this is absolutely true, and it's a sort of euphemism that we're using up to cover. And I don't see how this is actually doing any service to the Muslim community. It's all been covered up because from the Home Office downwards, and this has been the case from the beginning, and what I've discovered, which has really horrified me, is that this is still going on. The Home Office is still covering up. And the Muslim community, I mean, certainly all the Muslims I know are horrified. They don't want to be sort of linked to these particular Muslims. We should remember that it was a Muslim, Nazir Afzal, who's chief prosecutor, who brought this all to light, who wanted this to be known and started the prosecutions. So we are not doing any favor to race relations and community relationships by covering up who's doing this. And in fact, I think we're promoting extremism because ordinary people hearing this are so appalled about what's happening to these poor little girls, and that they find that they're not going to find this on mainstream media. They're not going to find their MPs or anyone talking, or very few of their MPs or anyone talking about it. So they're going to be drawn to extremists, some, right-wing nutter who's saying, oh, yeah, I'm going to do something about it. So it's driving people to extremism by not having honest conversations.
Well, that's quite a sophisticated argument, Harriet. I'm not sure I'd entirely buy it, because to me it seems slightly more obvious than this. I've met quite a lot of these girls in Rotherham and not a lot, but enough of them in Rotherham, and I'm always amazed that there are no journalists beating a path to their door. There are no community spokesmen who want to take up their cause. Nobody holds candlelight vigils for all the girls who are gang raped day in, day out. Everybody's a victim now. Everybody's a victim. If you misgender someone on Twitter, you're a victim, and they go to the coppers, and the coppers send a SWAT team round to arrest the misgenderer. But we have girls being raped, and nobody cares about them. And I'm told, I'm on the Pakistani Muslim side of the equation, they're dismissed as, quote, you can see this in all the reports, there is dismissed as, quote, white slags, and on the, what one might call the indigenous population side of the thing, they're dismissed as, quote, unquote, Paki shaggers. So these girls have no champion. I can't understand what sort of country lets 12-year-old girls be gang raped and just, that's just the way it is. What's the big deal?
No, I agree with you. I think it's shocking. And I think it's this, we saw the Me Too movement out for Weinstein's victims, holding, as you say, candlelit vigils and all of that. But the problem it's the wrong kind of perpetrator and the wrong kind of victim. I mean, the trouble is that the victims are white working class working class girls as opposed to middle class. And the perpetrators aren't white men of privilege, which is the favorite kind of perpetrator, not now. They are, I mean, you know, the man who burnt poor little, I think it was Lucy Lowe, and her mother and her sister burnt them to death, was a Pakistani Muslim. And you're not allowed to have them as perpetrators. They are meant to be in the lexicon. They're meant to be the victims. So it's all so confusing and distressing that they just ignore it and move on, which I agree with you, I think is deeply shocking.
Yeah, and I think it's one of the evil things about the new obsession with identity groups and the hierarchy of identity groups, which is very crude, really. You know, trans apparently trumps lesbian and all this kind of thing. And it means that actually identity groups that transcend all borders, such as rape victims, are kind of eliminated completely from the hierarchy. You made an interesting point. It's in your Spectator column too, the comparison with the Harvey Weinstein Me Too thing, where we had all these actresses, sometimes very famous actresses, sometimes actresses who'd once been famous and had refused to put out for Harvey, and so he'd killed their careers. A lot of people thought, as long as there's been show business, there's been a casting couch, going back deep into the roots of theatre centuries ago. And so a lot of people said, well, you know, all these actors, if you go into Hollywood, you know what you're expected to do to get on. Isn't it true that a lot of judges, bureaucrats, policemen, municipal councillors make the same argument now with relation to the gangs in these cities, that it's a cultural phenomenon and one has to accommodate it? And that is what is most disturbing to me, is that the right of a 12-year-old girl to walk around an English town unmolested it now has to be measured against some long-standing, culturally different view of women that comes from basically a corner of the Muslim world.
Well, I mean, as a woman, I find that totally appalling. I think the thing that disturbs me most of all is the way the Home Office covered this up to begin with. And from what I discovered, seems to be continuing to cover it up, continuing to trend. I mean, there's this absolutely appalling report the Home Office brought out, making out that actually the Muslim community was not represented. That it's you know, it's all very diverse. There's lots of people who are raping 12-year-olds, and when you look at why this report and the data that this report was allowed to use, it's because, as the South Yorkshire Post recently pointed out, the police in 67% of cases in Rotherham are not reporting the ethnicity of the perpetrators. Yes. So that allows these ridiculous Home Office reports to say, well, then we can't say it. It could be anybody. It could be, you know, the poor Bhutanese, or, you know, whoever you want to say it is, a Pole or whatever. And actually, this is
but that is no, just on that.
Address this problem.
No, but Harriet, here's the point. We have all these baronesses now. We've got baronesses a go-go. We got wall-to-wall baronesses, and every time something happens in some English town, they find one of these baronesses and get her to chair a committee looking into it. And I've read these reports. I read the reports from Oldham, Telford, your town here, and they all say the same thing. Unfortunately, the constabulary, whatever it is, whether it's West Mercia, Greater Manchester, South Yorkshire, as you said, they don't record these statistics as to who it is who's actually doing all the gang raping. They've been putting that complaint in these reports for over a decade now, and despite being instructed to keep accurate, specific records by the Home Office, none of these constabularies actually do.
Well, I wonder how strong those instructions are from the Home Office, because it seems to suit the Home Office agenda enormously to pretend that this problem does not exist. And as I said earlier, I think that's very, very dangerous. We have to focus on this problem. If the Home Office collected proper data, they would find, as one youth worker from that community himself, a sort of young Muslim man, has pointed out that most of these perpetrators are part of drug gangs. So this is crime that is going on. It's not just raping young girls. It's part of a whole thing. It's part of selling drugs. It's also part of corruption. Because we've had police and councillors prosecuted, and this should be focused on. We should be focusing on the fact this is a criminal activity, and something needs to be done about it, instead of just saying, oh, it's just about sex with underage girls. Let's move on and not do anything.
No, and it's not sex with underage girls. It's the most violent kind of degrading rape, including the girls being urinated on, including them being doused in petrol while these lunatics dance around them with matches. But they don't matter. They're invisible. In the evil state of contemporary English cities, these girls are invisible. Thank you very much, Harriet. Do read Harriet's piece in The Spectator and spare a thought for that poor girl and all the other 13-year-old girls. As we've mentioned, there are now over 7 million people on the NHS waiting list in England alone. That's actually bigger than the population of either Scotland, Northern Ireland or Wales. So maybe we should make waitlist Stan a fifth home nation of the United Kingdom, with its own devolved government, or in this case, devolved non-government. As we've also mentioned, if you're a, quote, asylum seeker living in a luxury Parkland estate mansion, such as Dunchurch Park Hotel in Rugby, oh, that's lovely, you get access to 2 GP clinics a week, not at the lousy old surgery filled with riffraff, but at your luxury abode just outside Rugby, and possibly in the walnut-panelled billiards room. That is second window bottom left there. Our friend Leilani Dowding combined these two contrasting British healthcare systems into one playful tweet. Quote, how to beat the NHS waitlist and stay warm this winter. 1, hide your ID. 2, take a dinghy halfway out. 3, turn it around, head back to the shore and pretend you don't speak English. Pretty funny, but today's internet is no laughing matter, so Twitter immediately decided to sick the fact-checkers on Leilani's joke. Like almost everybody else, they used the sinister group Full Fact, fully funded by American billionaires to destroy British free speech. They're the official fact-check partners of Ofcom, the British state regulator of TV and radio, because Ofcom thinks these woke yank billionaires should have more say over what you're permitted to watch than you do. We asked Michael Grade, now chairman of Ofcom and once a semi-competent light entertainment impresario, to come on the show and explain why a civilized society should be in the business of fact-checking jokes, but we haven't heard back from him. Leilani's here, however. Leilani, what did the Full Fact deem to be false about your joke?
Well, what it was is, first of all, I just want to say it was a joke, not instructions. I don't want you getting another Ofcom complaint to say that I'm telling people to do this. It was a joke. So basically, they went in and said that they don't think that it hasn't been proven that illegal immigrants get higher up onto a waiting list. But let's just say talk about what you spoke about a couple of days ago, and that's that these asylum seekers or illegal immigrants are staying in these homes, massive, beautiful hotels, and they're getting GP clinics once a week. And you've heard it from an MP that they're getting. Now you try and get a doctor's appointment as a normal, everyday British person. It's impossible. You're on your phone. If you don't have redial, you have to keep dialing it and dialing. You have to call within a certain amount of time. And then you're very lucky if you get an in-person appointment. It's usually an over-the-phone appointment. So obviously there are so many things being misdiagnosed or not being seen correctly. But one thing to remember is these fact checkers, it's been found in a lawsuit in America that they're actually protected opinions. The New York Post ran a whole article about a lawyer that took Facebook to court. It was actually on Facebook, and their opinions, they're not actual facts. So we saw Sajid Javid. Oh, sorry, go on.
No, I was just, they said, well, it may have had a humorous intent, but people took it serious. I think we should know, before we take the risk of making another joke, you know, why did the chicken cross the road? Who was that lady I saw you with last night? Knock, knock, who's there? 1,000 Sudanese jihadists. We've just showed up in Dover. I think Full Fact actually ought to fact check every single joke, because otherwise it's going to be too dangerous to make any in this country anymore.
That's it. And the crazy thing is they aren't fact-checking real things like, you know, the video of Dr. Sarah Kayat that you always, where she's saying that vaccine is 100% effective against transmission or terrible side effects of COVID. But this is the thing as well, is the fact-checkers' own fact-checking is their opinion. So when people like Piers Morgan, or yesterday, the Together Declaration, actually have a video of Sajid Javid saying facts change. Facts don't change. Opinions can change. Science can change. The narrative can change. But facts don't change. And fact-checkers aren't actually checking, you know, proper facts. But I think a lot of people, you know, I
no,
said
that's just, this has gotten way out of hand. You know, the whole fact check thing is just rubbish, you know, and actually if they're going to fact check jokes, that's what totalitarian societies do. Milan Kundera's fabulous novel set in communist Czechoslovakia about a guy whose life is ruined by a joke. That's the way Full Fact is going, you know, whatever it is. How many fact checkers does it take to fact check a light bulb? That's basically what they're doing now, Leilani. They're just taking obvious humorous satirical material and putting a health warning on you, and you don't need it. God bless you for what you do and for pointing out the insanity of the world we live in. When we come back, we've got Jules Sirkin here. Oh, wait, quickly then. Just say it quickly. What do you got?
So regarding
Is Leilani still there?
Yeah, so regarding waiting lists, I want to say that tomorrow the Together Declaration is handing over a petition to Theresa Coffey, and it's about the 40,000 healthcare workers that were forced out of their jobs because of the mandates. That we've lost 40,000 healthcare workers, which has caused people to be stuck in hospital that should be released to either care homes or into their homes. So that's 13,000 beds a day taken up because we don't have enough healthcare workers because of the mandate. So I just wanted to give Together Declaration a little shout out for that.
That's an important thing. No justification for that whatsoever. We're going to have more on this, actually, with Jules Sirkin on facts versus the official narrative. And that is coming up in just a couple of moments, so don't go anywhere.
Weekday afternoons on GB News, we've got the whole of the UK covered. From 12 to 3, it's GB News Day with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Gloria Di Piero. You'll get the very latest on everything that's been going on across our great nation.
And from 3 till 6, watch out for GB News Live with me, Patrick Christys. I'm not here to mess around with all the biggest topics and guests. You will always be up to date. GB News Day and GB News Live from 12 p.m.
Only on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
One of the first vaccine victims we featured on this show was Jules Sirkin, a presenter with BBC Radio Kent who now lives with chronic and crippling vaccine injuries. It's interesting to me that BBC News is not terribly curious about what happened to one of their colleagues any more than they're interested in the awful, appalling death of another BBC presenter, Lisa Shaw, whose poor widower tweets into the abyss almost daily, pleading for one of his wife's media comrades to take an interest in her fate. Jules has suffered extreme episodes and spent a fair bit of time in hospital in recent weeks, but we're glad she's back with us. Jules, you had an interesting exchange, or rather a kind of non-exchange, when you asked one of these doctors about vaccine injuries, and he did, I think it was Dr. Evil who did the old zip it manoeuvre. Tell us about that.
Well, it was a lady, actually. It was a female doctor, and she was lovely. She came to sit next to me after I'd been lying around in A&E for a while, and she sat down, and the first thing she did was a big yawn, because she was exhausted. And then I was telling her about the vaccine damage, and I said, you must be seeing it now, because I could see the difference as soon as I came in. It was the D-dimer, the heart, the blood, you know. Lots of nurses, not too many doctors, sadly. And she said, yeah, but she said, zip mouth. And I said to her, you need to watch the Mark Steyn show and hear what's actually happening and how we're talking about it. And she made a little note, and then somebody had a heart attack and she had to rush off and resuscitate them. So I lay on the couch and then I took a picture of her note, and she'd written Mark Steyn, GB News, which I thought was brilliant. So she had listened.
Well, that's not the important bit. I mean, I thank you for that, Jules. But the important bit is that your doctor implied that there was something going on, but they've been told to zip it.
It's actually the second time that's happened to me, because when I was at Moorfields with the AstraZeneca eye damage last year, which was about, lose track, August, the consultant I saw there told me her own mother went blind from the 2 Pfizers. And I, of course, said, please, can you talk to me about it? And she said, no, she refused to talk to me about it. My husband was in with me, he's a journalist. She wouldn't talk to us. So that's 2 doctors. And I found this time, this visit was very different. It was, I think they've just become so used to seeing vaccine damage.
And yet, at the same time, it's not recognised by the system as a whole. Do you think eventually doctors and nurses will speak out about this?
Well, there are some nurses speaking out, and they've lost their jobs. And I'm speaking to a beautiful, lovely, very senior NHS worker about stillbirths, which she's seeing a rise in.
Yes, that's terrible then.
So people are talking to me, but they're not speaking out as much as they perhaps could. People have mortgages, people have things to expenditure, and they're scared of losing their jobs. And there's a stigma about it, isn't there? Yes, no, that's true. And in fact, the stillbirths thing is one of the idiotic things that
Ofcom are investigating this show about. Jules, I wish your friends at the BBC would do more on this because we need to bust it out into the open. But thank you very much, and we will stay on this even if no one else does, and I hope fewer doctors do zip it. We've got room for one quick stump, let's stump it out. Where is this thing? Oh, yeah, this guy says, how do you expect the Ofcom complaints to affect your career? My career's got a good 72 hours to go. That'll do it. Patrick Christys is here. What you got, Patrick?
Yes, it's got longer than that, Mark. Don't you dare worry. For what it's worth as well, I tweeted earlier on, I did have my vaccines. I do feel as though I was a little bit conned into it, and I would do the old reverse ferret if I could. But talking of medical treatment, a record 7 million people waiting for NHS care. The NHS is not free. We all pay for it every single day. And if you pay for a service and it's not good enough, which this one isn't, you have the right to be up in arms about it. The Clash, we're going to be talking about whether...
No.
What? What?
No, you've got to stand on your doorstep and applaud for the NHS. That's all.
The problem is sometimes, Mark, I get so carried away, I worry if I've accidentally sworn, and that's what I thought, but then I thought you wouldn't be the one to criticise me for doing that, so there we go. Anyway, the Clash, right? I'm talking about whether or not people have a choice now when it comes to their politicians. We haven't got a Conservative Party because they don't care about immigration. And we've got a bloke in charge of Labour who used to want to abolish the monarchy. It's like being asked to choose which poo smells nicer. And as well, we're going to be talking about the fact that now children have started going missing from these migrant hotels. If the fact that illegal immigration wasn't bad enough on its own, stop people, the fact that now kids are going missing might put the lovies back in their box. Mark, great show.
Yeah, that's disgusting, that, and we think, and those kids aren't headed anywhere good.
No.
What did he say? Which poo smells the nicer? You can't get sophisticated metaphors like that anywhere else. Patrick Christys, after the weather. Stay safe, stay free.
I'm Alex Deakin with your latest weather update. Good evening to you. The next few days will continue to bring chopping and changing weather. Yes, at times there'll be plenty of October sunshine, but there'll be lots of showers around as well, and often fairly breezy, especially in the north. Weather fronts moving across the north, and then we have this waving weather front close to the south. In between, well, there's been plenty of fine weather through the day today, but now these weather fronts are pushing in across Scotland and Northern Ireland. Further rain to come in the northwest. Very blustery conditions here as well. The winds are lighter further south. Misty, murky conditions developing again, so a few fog patches are likely. It won't be as cold as last night. Temperatures in many towns and cities staying in double digits. On to Friday, and it's a bit of a mishmash, really. Cloud and rain in the southwest, just slowly spreading northwards. At the same time, this line of rain clears from the central belt of Scotland, spreads into southern Scotland and eventually into parts of northern England, followed by lots of showers across Scotland and Northern Ireland. But in between, some parts of northern England, North Wales, having another dry and a bright day. Quite mild in the south, 17, 18, but not feeling all that mild with the cloud and the outbreaks of rain. It'll still be around on Friday evening across the southeast before that scoots away. This line of rain kind of fizzles out as it sinks its way southwards. So again, clear spells, some mist and fog patches forming as we head into Saturday. But then another line of rain comes zipping in. That'll make for a fairly soggy start through parts of Wales, Northern England and Scotland on Saturday, but again it scoots away to the north and to the east, and it'll be followed behind by a whole host of showers. So blustery with sunshine and showers on Saturday afternoon, with temperatures again in the south, the mid to high teens, lower further north, only 10 to 12, so feeling pretty fresh here with that brisk wind. The weather charts remain messy through the weekend, low pressure systems bringing the bands of showers, and then this one could bring some more persistent rain into the west on Sunday.
Weekday afternoons on GB News, we've got the whole of the UK covered. From 12 to 3, it's GB News Day with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Gloria Di Piero. You'll get the very latest on everything that's been going on across our great nation.
And from 3 till 6, watch out for GB News Live with me, Patrick Christys. I'm not here to mess around with all the biggest topics and guests. You will always be up to date. GB News Day and GB News Live from 12 p.m.
Only on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m.